Welcome to the ASPR podcast Inside Conflict with Moritz Ehrmann. So welcome to the second part of ASPR's podcast Inside Conflict, focusing today on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I'm here with Ofer Salzberg, Jeff Sohl, and Dr. Carlo Aldrovandi. Very good to have you back. In this second part, we would focus a bit on what this sort of interesting situation of this heterogeneous government that now exists in Israel would mean for broader sort of peacemaking related questions related to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Jeff, would you like to go first?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing that has to be acknowledged is, the story is still unfolding and it remains to be seen. One of the things that seems hopeful from my perspective is that this is a potential moment in which a sort of recognition of something that the need to address something that has not been as fully addressed in prior efforts to resolve the conflict. Most of the prior peace processes, any student of them knows, were very much sort of led by secular elements, very political, top-down, if you will, sort of efforts to resolve the conflict. It's not as if there wasn't some effort made to engage religious actors, religious communities, important sheikhs and rabbis and whatnot, but it was relatively thin. And I think a much deeper and more sustained effort to engage actors coming from diverse worldview perspectives, the ways in which these worldviews influence the politics of the region, and an effort really to make to try to find an agreement that works for these diverse communities within their own perspectives is what's needed, and we sort of see that happening within the context of this new government potentially. Whether this transfers to a future peace process, who knows? But I hope so.
Yeah, of course, it's to be hoped for. Maybe, Ofer, turning to you, and because also this concept of worldviews was mentioned so much already in the previous part where we discussed about the government more broadly. Could you perhaps go into the question a little bit of what this means, sort of generally speaking, and what does it mean also related to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
Yeah, that's right. In a way, worldviews can differ in terms of the different values that they include, in terms of the hierarchy between these values, in terms of which set of laws they are based on, in terms of their horizon. Do they have an eschatology, some kind of political vision they are aspiring towards? So a worldview in the Israeli-Palestinian context, it could be a Muslim Brotherhood worldview, it could be a religious Zionist worldview, it could be a secular Zionist worldview, it could be a US evangelical worldview, and so on and so forth. And within these worldviews, there are discussions as well. There are all kinds of strands and disagreements. Fundamentally, Israeli, as Jeff already indicated, Israeli-Palestinian peacemaking so far was for the most part anchored within a single worldview, a more liberal, secular worldview with all kinds of premises, notably a reliance exclusively on international law. And for many constituencies in both Palestinian and Israeli society, this exclusive reliance on international law, this exclusive reliance on certain liberal Western values, suggested that this is not only a process to advance peace, but also a process trying to secularize and liberalize the societies. And in both societies, therefore, there were people who were trying to protect national identity, religious identity, their cultures. They felt that advancing these liberal secular projects will atomize them, will fragment them, will harm who they are. And this is, even though these are people who were keen on advancing peace. So really one of the challenges for the future is finding how to advance Israeli-Palestinian peacemaking in a way that coheres with several worldviews, including a liberal one, including a secular one, but not in a way that is exclusive. If any worldview would have exclusivity, then we are going to see this intractability persist. It's too soon to say in terms of whether this government will have an impact on that, but we do see that they have an incentive now to find a way to design policies in a way that coheres with several worldviews. Otherwise, they may find that their political longevity is limited.
Yeah, very interesting setup indeed. Maybe, Carlo, a follow-up question, a specific one, because so Ofer and Jeff, of course, referred quite a lot to the religious identity that is, of course, very strong in the country. And then there's, of course, one particular site that is particularly at the center of this religious identity for both sides. So we're talking about, of course, Temple Mount or the Haram al-Sharif. So what would this mean? So this whole setup that we have now discussed, this new situation, what might this mean for any conflict that might arise again around this so highly symbolic religious site?
I think that Temple Mount Haram al-Sharif will remain the linchpin on the conflict. I don't know the extent to which this new government will have an impact on that. But I think it's important to bear in mind that the Holy Esplanade, which is the neutral term to describe Temple Mount Haram al-Sharif, is not only a point of friction between two communities, but it has also transnational importance, relevance, because it's relevant also for the evangelical community in the U.S. Has strong eschatological hopes attached to the narrative of the Third Temple, but it is also very important for the Islamic community as such. So there is also a geopolitical regional competition of the custodianship, the ownership of the Haram al-Sharif that must be taken into account. So there are different layers that make the Haram al-Sharif Temple Mount a kind of local issue, both global and local. And it's an additional layer of complexity added to the conflict, and so that requires a more profound, a deeper religious literacy to understand such a complexity.
In the next segment, we're going to talk about a bit more about sort of what does this mean for an international and maybe also a regional perspective. But for now, thank you very much. Subscribe to our podcast or visit the website insideconflict.com. For more information about the work of the ASPR, visit aspr.ac.at. Until next time.